Thank you so much, Brother Marwan and David and RBC for putting this kind of forum together. It is what we lack in the country of which we have such free opinions of which we can ask our leaders and our historical leaders whatever we think is right. Since we are having an open-ended kind of discussions of which our questions are more of generic than specific, mine would be of a commentary and then questions in it. First, what I want to say is how personality cult contributed to lordism, impunity, and corruption in South Sudan. And what we are seeing or what we are witnessing in South Sudan, we start with the tragedy of Africa, transitioning from territorial states to a republic or building a nation of the states. What we have as a people, especially in particular as Nilotics, our issue of which Comrade Pagan has dwelt a lot discussing, of which he was a typical part of it as well as part of the system. We started with personality cult, of which individuals became more important than the movement itself, than even the process of liberation itself. So what we are seeing in South Sudan, why we have lots of subjects, people who see themselves semi-gods, or people who think they have the authority ordained by God and they can behave the way they're behaving. This was built in the fabric of SPLA, in the psychic of SPLM as a revolutionary movement. When all infrastructure, traditional institutions were all abolished and impunity started on. So we are seeing a process which has been building for the last nearly 40 years of liberation struggle, which has now eventually culminated in what we are seeing in South Sudan. So why we have corruptions? Because our leaders, the current SPLM as a party ruling, people see themselves more important, the leaders see themselves more important than the subjects, than the people that are ruling, because they have already destroyed the infrastructure, the fabric, what held the community together. For example, the question of Upper Nile, of what is happening in Malakal and around there between the Jiang of Upadang and then the Sholo people of Sholo Kingdom. All these rhetorics came about when individuals became more important than the movement itself. So if we think, like for example, we could say, the ideals of the SPLM was Comrade Pagan, because he was the SG of the movement at the times. And some of the infantry or the then foot soldiers like us who were just merely in the Red Army, we can never be part of any say of how wrong or where the movement is leading to. So when we are talking of currently keys, what the president is doing, it is something different. But this is from the mindset, the mentality, which was built. That's why when you say this is wrong, then you would automatically be killed. And that's what is killing people in Juba with unknown gunmen. It is just a simple opinions. You write an article or you say your own opinion that this is wrong or that there's massive corruption, or the constitution written then wasn't about us. And Comrade Pagan, remember well, when we were in the Second National Convention in 2008, this was the tug of war of which the people you were leading when as the SG and then the president, and there was kind of more of a coalition at the times. So already South Sudan was set to failure at the times of the failure of the leaders to truly have honest opinions. Some want to be more lords than the others. Some wanted to be the people only sang by our people. So this is what has created this. And the two states, territorial states, it is a state of which in character, it's theocratic in character, of which the people are always equal. The leaders are just mere vessel or medium of communication between the gods and the higher beings. While in a republic, the state is a colonial in character, that only the ruling parties or elites are more important than the rest. And they created a semi-document, what they call constitutions, which doesn't even reflect the aspirations of the people. So that's what we are seeing, why we have these things. We cannot build an ideal state, or the way, for example, what all this that we are saying are idealistic to be true. But one thing is sure, it is the failure of the monster that was built by the people, of which Comrade Pagan was one part of that movement at the times, and now left the real monster in the name of our government that is supposed to be the government of the people. What they are doing, especially the massive corruption that we are seeing, it started right in the SPLM as an organization which had no accountability to the people whatsoever, and now in the cabinet, in the government. And when you say it, everything is militarized. And they have followers of which will never listen to the voice of reasons. They will never ask you, why are you saying this? What they will do is take out the guns and shoot you on the spot. So we must all be responsible. Even those of us who have not had leadership in this particular movement, in this particular government, we must all be responsible for our individuals' actions at the community level that we have also failed. So when Comrade Pagan is talking, he must at least be optimistic and also take the responsibility as a leader that his own making as a SG and failure to implement the virus document, the SPLM manifesto and the SPLM constitutions and the visions and movement statements, all those ones which would have defined the country. We failed from the start. That's why, and later on they wrote the constitution, and this is not just a mere work of Gerald Kiir as the president. The constitution was written by them, the SPLM members, and they wanted to vest all the powers of the country into the SPLM. That only the right person, the Lords, would be the chairman of the party, and this is what is true. So if we are to ask, what exactly are we to do, like the way Comrade Pagan has talked a lot about youth and responsibilities of individuals. First of all, we must understand the transition from the traditional system of which majority, 99% of our people are still anchored in, while the 1% or less than 1% is now thinking of modernizing, when actually they have taken away all the powers from the community. Agriculture is neglected and billions of dollars is taken. And it is only when somebody is out of the system, that's when you can make a good commentary. Like now, Comrade Pagan is in exile, and they are determined, of course, if he comes to South Sudan, they will do whatever they have always done, like what they did to them earlier on. So everybody, whether armed to struggle, the groups splinter groups of Pagan and other SPLMIO groups that are still out, or Gerald Thomas, all these individuals are not truly the angels that we were waiting for, because they were part of the SPLM, and it is within the SPLM, when they fail to have won over the people, they have not shared the resources equally. That's why all this split is coming, and it is tragic, especially the scandals that is happening. Of course, Comrade Pagan has been out for long, but the way SPLM party and the president and the cabinet, the way they're doing it, it is a true looting. Our people are being raped. Truly, everything is being taken away from them. So my question is, how idealistically would you really say any other insurrections or civil protests that can go out onto the streets, or few individuals taking up arms, cannot be treated like all other armed resistance that we have seen for the last 7 years, since 2013 or earlier than that. So how can our people be so suicidal again? Can we allow our people to go out again to be slaughtered on this? Or should we approach the way some other organizations are approaching it? So what is the best way forward? Because I see until when individuals like Hugh and few individuals now in the SPLM, like the way Comrade Kwalmanyang was coming out the other time, with as well, silently, and perhaps even Pagan, they are saying the same thing, that we are corrupt. Yet still they are not doing anything that can truly tell our people, especially our communities, that you are wrong in what you individuals you have destroyed the country the way it is. And now you are coming back to be the people who would want to really rectify it, what you did earlier on. So I will end my question here, but let's look at it again and see this transitioning, not the successive peace that you signed, but from territorial state that recognize every individual, every tribal boundary into modern states, which is a republic, which nullifies everything. And that's why oil fields or whatever areas is being controlled by, or gold fields in western eastern Equatoria is being controlled by a state, what I would call mafias and oligarchs, not the community or not even the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lem, for your comments and your question.
Mr. Lam, or Comrade Lam, was proceeding from what I see as erroneous basis when he talked of that the SPLM developed a personality cult which led to warlordism. I disagree with this notion. The SPLM as an organization, and he was a member of it, was an organization composed of volunteers. And the most important principle around which the SPLM was organized was the principle of self-sacrifice and self-denial, to be ready to die for the cause of our people. And to this effect, the SPLM as an organization has sacrificed or has offered tens of thousands of its members stepping forward to give their lives and died for this country, for us to be free. That is the core principle of the organization of SPLM, around which we evolved, around which we waged battles, we lived, and that is key. It was not personality cult. And if personality cult have developed and warlordism have developed, these were developing against this very principle itself. And yes, there were cases of warlordism, there were cases of personality cult. But the most important organizing principle in the SPLM struggle has been that of self-sacrifice, and that is what made the SPLM achieve what it has achieved, of dictating terms and the will of our people on the adversaries of SPLM and of the people of South Sudan, and dictated our will precisely because of that, transforming this sacrifice in the military field on the table of negotiations, and took the form of the peace agreement. Again, after we signed the peace agreement, our founding leader, Dr. John Garang de Mabior, defined the period after the war as a payback time to the people. Now we have achieved the freedom, and we were becoming a state, and therefore we need to deliver to the people the services that they were expecting in terms of social services like education, health, clean water, and then economic development in terms of supporting the growth of agriculture, as Mr. Lam has mentioned. And these are covered in the SPLM strategy of transition from war to peace. The second point is that to say that only when somebody is out of the system, that is when they can talk, or when you talk, when you are out of the system. This, I think, is missing a very important stage. And I give you my example. I was the Secretary General. I criticized the leadership, and I said there are mistakes that are being committed. There is need to correct those mistakes. There is need to fight corruption genuinely, and not to use corruption as a tool for political gain or power, but rather to really protect the resources and use the resources for the purposes that they are budgeted for. And I was Secretary General. What landed me into house arrest and into the denial of my rights of freedom of speech was what? Because I was criticizing the SPLM, and people were saying, why are you criticizing the SPLM leadership when you are the Secretary General? And I answered that question, that precisely it is the duty of a member of SPLM to criticize this organization if it is doing things wrongly. And I'm a member, and I'm a leading member in the SPLM. When I see things that being done wrong, there is need to correct them. Mind you, I only talk to the public or to the media after very long period of engaging with the chairman of the party and the president of the country, and many people can attest to that. So actually, as he said precisely, because of the dictatorship that President Kiir developed, to the point that when, as he mentioned, and I'm sure he was referring to people like journalist Abraham, who wrote a number of articles criticizing the leadership of SPLM, and he was assassinated. When I was speaking, criticizing the leadership of SPLM, including warning against taking the country to war in 2013, I was arrested and almost I lost my life. It is because of that. So he cannot say that only we talk when we are out of the system or out of the country. No, we have been talking right there, and talking right to the face of President Kiir as the chairman of the SPLM and also as the president. And that is the attempt. Even let us take the 2013 war. 2013 war was was to silence dissent within the SPLM itself by President Kiir. When we were criticizing, when we were saying there is massive corruption happening, the president is forming a private army, and that is illegal, and it is also wrong to try to take the country to war. We were against war. And we were arrested, we were detained to silence us because we were calling for democratization of SPLM. We were calling for correction of mistakes in the SPLM. How can Lam skip this reality? Now, when we were arrested and when we were taken to court accused of treason because we were speaking the truth, which is now today, everybody, including himself, is agreeing that these are wrong things that are taking place. So I do not agree with that. And this is really, the truth is to the contrary. There are people who have been speaking, there are people who have been writing, and he is right to say that when you speak out in a situation like South Sudan, which is a violent dictatorship, you risk your life. And many journalists lost their lives, and because of that, and many other opponents also lost their life in mysterious ways, precisely because they were speaking out. Some were part of the system, some were outside the system, but they were speaking out in the country. Now, to try to assume a collective responsibility for the mistakes and the corruption that have happened, this is a nice way to try to mobilize for a solution to the problem. But when you are together, you say there are mistakes that are being committed. We know who are those committing mistakes. Not everybody committing these mistakes. Like he himself, if he says that he assumed responsibility for this will be just solidarity, just for being a member. But he is not part of those who have committed those mistakes. And they are continuing up to today. As he said, was out of the country and out of the system for a very long time. And the things we were saying back in 2012, 2011, 2013 are massive today. And actually, corruption did not start in the SPLM. The corruption started in the government. And let me give you the first case of corruption, and it was the contract and a loan taken, brought by a company called Ayat to build a road from Meram to Awil. That was the first case of corruption. And actually, the deputy governor of the central bank, led Elijah Malok, opposed this and tried to stop this corrupt deal. But the president threatened him and even threatened to arrest him, and wrote a letter to President Bashir to arrest Elijah Molok, accusing him of having stolen money. It was the governor of the banks, Dr. Sabir, who alerted President Bashir that this is not true. Elijah Molok is a very clean person. He did not engage in any corruption, but he was trying to stop a case of corruption, which President Kiir was supporting and pursuing, and he benefited from it himself. He got the first kickback in the history of South Sudan, and that was $28.8 million. This is a fact. You can go back to the documents. There are many witnesses to this, and this case has even been brought to the parliament, and it was reviewed hushly because the fingers were pointing very clearly to President Kiir, and nobody wanted to have the courage to confront this. That was the first case of corruption. And it followed with many other cases, and most of them around President Kiir himself, including his participation in the Dura saga, his participation in allocating road contracts to his own company, ABMC, and so forth, which continues up to today as we speak. As we speak, President Kiir is allocating to his own companies huge contracts worth billions of dollars without bidding. And he decides how much a kilometer costs. And he's making a huge loot out of every kilometer, more than the cost of the road itself. These are facts. You cannot just brush them over or just say, oh, you blame the whole government, which has been the tactics of President Kiir. Every time he will accuse his own government of corruption when he is actually the one engaging in massive corruption himself. These are facts. Just like now, look at the road to Bahr Ghazal and the road to Bor or the road to Nadapal. All these are allocated to his own companies. And he is the one who engineered them. He is the one who approved this contract without any bidding, without any technical studies, without the involvement of the Ministry of Transport, Roads and Transport, or Roads and Bridges. No involvement. They were involved after the fact. These are realities. Not in the past, today as we speak. Then he engages in corruption in his own office. Then he arrests and accuses his own staff, take them to court, release them, and reward some of them for having silent and covering him up. Just like what he did with the road to Bahr Ghazal. Now, if Minister of Foreign Affairs Meigu was the Minister of Presidential Affairs, was the one who was corrupt and responsible for this, why would you bring him back? Why have you not investigated him? The truth is that this is done by President Kiir, and he uses Meig as a scapegoat. That is it. It should not deceive any South Sudanese. People should not be gullible to the point of just being carried away by just simple statements like that. That is what we are talking about, this destructive type of corruption, which is being carried out by the head of the state himself. Look at the recent scandal of $650 million to be paid with a sovereign guarantee issued by the Bank of South Sudan under President Kiir directives. Then the World Bank, the IMF complains about this if they are taking $650 million and they come around to ask for $300 million loan. Why would they not use that money? I'm sure some of you or all of you have read the investigative journalist piece about it, in which those businessmen were saying that President Kiir cannot and will not stop this because he is getting 200 million himself out of that money. Imagine. This is just now. Who in South Sudan is engaged in such a massive type of corruption other than President Kiir? Nobody. Then when he came from China, what did he say? He said he has found a solution to corruption. Because in South Sudan, and he used the word, he said in Arabic that who liga mushkila bta corruption, who hasa hayjib sharakat bta sin يجي يبني الطرق ونينا نديهم بترول 100,000 وبعدك حولوا له بقى 30,000 برميل يوميا. ده طلع شركات بتاعه. in partnership مع شركات صينية أو مؤجرين مشغلين MDs يكونوا صينيين عشان يغش ناس. These are facts. حاجات قاعد يحصل الليلة ده ما حاجة مدسوس. Look at the exemptions from customs and taxation لشركات بتاعه to the tune of billions of dollars, $25 billion over a period of years. This is stealing from the revenue that the government was going to collect to pay the salaries of people, to build schools, to build clinics. And this is a broad daylight looting. This is the type of corruptions we are talking about. So our state is actually captured by kleptocrats, by people who are greedy and only thinking about making money for what I don't know, but thinking of looting the resources from the country. They have no any other program other than protecting the loot and killing the people if you talk against that. This cannot be something that you blame the SPLM for. It is actually done against the SPLM. This cannot be something that we can take responsibility for, all of us. The only responsibility we take is we have failed to prevent that as SPLM. And the SPLM has been hijacked, the state has been hijacked. These are realities of today as we speak. Thank you.